Thanks for tuning in to the Drive On podcast, where we're focused on giving hope and strength to the entire military community. Whether you're a veteran, active duty, guard, reserve, or a family member, this podcast will share inspirational stories and resources that are useful to you. I'm your host, Scott DeLuzio, and now let's get on with the show. When things go sideways, will you be prepared? Some people are concerned they might have to go for a long time without electricity or even food. That's why I want to introduce you to 4patriots.com. Get preparedness products you can use now, and that could save your life later. My favorite is 4Patriots' new solar generator, the Patriot Power Generator 2000X. It uses the endless free power of the sun to power lights, your TV, medical equipment, even run your fridge. Plus, it's expandable and comes with a free solar panel. Or pick up one of 4Patriots' best-selling survival food kits. Delicious tasting and designed to last for 25 years. They even have kits with real meat, and if the power's out, no worries. Just boil water over a fire, simmer, and serve. You'll enjoy a hot meal and stay safe in a crisis. More smart people than ever are finding 4Patriots. Over 2 million customers trust them, and you might have even seen them on TV. I had the folks at 4Patriots set up a special page for you at 4patriots.com/drive-on so that listeners of this podcast can see this week's discounts and deals before they go away. Go to 4patriots.com/drive-on, but hurry, these deals won't last long. Save more and get peace of mind now by going to 4patriots.com/drive-on. Hey everybody, welcome back to Drive On. I'm your host, Scott DeLuzio, and today my guest is Matt Scott. Matt is the author of the Surviving the Lion's Den series, and he's here today to discuss some of the benefits of writing to the audience here, and that it's never too late to start writing. So welcome to the show, Matt. I'm really glad to have you here.
Scott, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, you bet. For the folks who might not be familiar with you and kind of what you write about, tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your background and who you are.
Okay. Well, I was originally born in the Virginia Beach area of Virginia, but I went to college in a small liberal arts college just outside outside of Richmond, Virginia, and at Hammond Sydney College. And I studied under the former director of the Defense Intelligence Agency, General Sam Wilson. He was the president of the school at the time. And he kind of, learning from him, I got my claws into the intelligence agency, started learning things a little bit, and I just never really let it go. And then, I got in the corporate world for a while, almost 20 years actually. And, eventually I just, things were starting to get, I was starting to get complacent in the job. Things weren't going the way I wanted. And I decided to go for broke. And, through a meeting with David Baldacci, along with some other, fortuitous circumstances, I guess we'll call it, I decided to write a spy thriller. And my novels, Surviving the Lion's Den, The Iranian Deception, and The Ayatollah Takedown, all focus on the Iranian threat against the West. First book, Surviving the Lion's Den, is kind of a two-pronged story, but essentially it's about a CIA agent that gets kidnapped and tortured for coveted information, and a friend or the grandson of one of his, let's call him covers, I guess. His grandfather ends up getting killed, and he goes over there for revenge. He ends up getting captured, and they have to escape before a senator tries to close a U.S. base in the Middle East. So it's kind of an escape story. The second novel, The Iranian Deception, is about the Ayatollah of Iran dies, and there you go. And his successor wants to rule the Middle East with a connection to the Nazis. And one of the protagonists from the first book, who was was not the main protagonist, takes the lead in that novel. And it's kind of a let's save the world from disaster type thing. And the third novel, The Ayatollah Takedown, picks up right where The Iranian Deception left off, maybe about 6 months later. And it is about my creative take on regime change in Iran, which I think will happen in my lifetime, although I might be 97 when it happens, but I think their days are numbered. So I tried to come up with something that was, I learned a lot from the second war in Iraq. some of the mistakes that the government made during that. So I tried to take a lot of that and roll it into some creative flavors into it to make it a little bit more fun. So it's not, so rigid and structured, and kind of play with it a little bit. And that's what you got at the end of that one. So the title kind of gives it away, but
Sure.
it's a fun ride. It's a fun ride. I've got some really good feedback on it.
Well, for the listeners, this show is typically focused on helping military veterans, service members, or
Yeah.
families, and the
Mhm.
general military community, right? But
Mhm.
we're in this episode, I want to talk. So we just got a quick rundown description of each of these books. Um, the reason why I wanted to have Matt on is a couple of reasons. One, I think his books are the types of books that folks who are military connected might be interested in. They're not real, based on real events, but they're a good escape, from the doom and gloom of the media. But you can
Right.
dive into, a good kind of action book if that's your type of thing. With all
Yeah.
the the escapes and all the things that go into it. That to me, I think is really kind of cool. But the other part of this story that I want to talk about um, is kind of Matt's journey to becoming a writer and how he got to even writing any of these books. Matt is not a veteran, but as he is an author who got into writing a little bit later on in life, which is around the age that many people who might retire from the military looking for their second act might be getting out, and trying to figure out what's next for me. And not only could writing be a great therapeutic outlet for some people, or creative expression, or whatever you want to
Right.
call it, um but it also could be a second career. You're moving on
Absolutely.
from the military, you can get into that, right? Um
Absolutely.
so Matt, I'd love for you to share your journey from being a corporate office worker, 9 to 5 type thing, to becoming a writer, the way you kind of went from A to B.
Yeah. So for me, it was a long journey, and I didn't even know that I was going to end up as an author. When I got when I moved to Charlotte and I got to the corporate world, there were about 4 or 5 years there where I really had just I wasn't feeling well. I was kind of depressed because my family had a tragedy. My brother and my cousin died within 6 weeks of each other in 2009, crossing over into 2010. So it was a really low point for me. And, when you kind of battle that depression, you kind of go into a safe zone. And my safe zone was reading and, watching King of the Hill reruns on Cartoon Network. Uh, but, as I started reading, the novels of, Vince Flynn, Brad Thor, Dan Brown, not only was I reading them and enjoying them. But what I didn't realize is that, as you read and the more you read, you're really taking a class from the authors who are writing them. And they're telling you, they're showing you how they, develop characters, develop story arcs, how they could pull off, sudden changes and surprises in a novel. So I just kind of kept reading for years. And, when I was working my job in corporate America, every single day, well, just about every day, I made an effort to leave my desk, go down to my car in the parking lot, and read for an hour. That was my time away from my desk to kind of get rejuvenated. And I did that for years. Um, and I just start reading, you start, developing ideas. I always thought I had a knack for writing. Hampton City College is one of those liberal arts colleges that really stresses writing and developmental writing. You have to actually take a rhetoric class in order to graduate. So those skills never really left me. I just didn't know how to develop them. And one year, I started developing. I always wanted to do a story about Iran, just simply because I thought it was a country that was really unexplored from the literary aspect. I mean, you had the Argo movie that came along in, I think, in 2012 or something like that, but by and large, you don't hear a lot or read a lot of movies or books inside Iran in terms of what it looks like. So I always wanted to do something like that and do something about an escaped CIA agent. Then one winter, I was going back. It was right around Thanksgiving weekend, I think. Right, I can't remember if it was before or after, but anyway, it was the weekend of the Army Navy game. I drove back to Williamsburg, Virginia, through a snowstorm, and met David Baldacci up in Williamsburg at William and Mary College. And I was getting ready to be 40 at the time, and it was my turn at the desk. Get my book signed. I said, "Look, I'm getting ready to be 40. Is that too old to write my first novel?" And I kid you not, he stopped mid-signature. You can see the dot where he stopped in the book that I have on the shelf over there. And he looks up at me, he says, "Hell no, the industry could use some good young writers." Now, I didn't know if I should be happier that this guy thought 40 was young or that he was telling me to kind of go forth with my destiny. But nonetheless, I came home and started working on the idea. Um, and I think that was, when I got home, I think I started it in February, actually writing it in February. And I had the first draft done by August or so. Um, and then I followed the usual process of, querying an agent, getting a publisher and, surviving the lines. Then I think went through one major, rework, but it came out in October of 2021, and it's been a ride since. But it's never too late. I am proof that it's never too late. And for the veterans listening out there, I actually think that all of you have a better chance of becoming a writer than really I did, because I came from the corporate world. I did not have a whole lot of real life experiences to draw on. It's kind of like, I don't want to put myself in the same category as Tom Clancy, but Tom Clancy started out in insurance, and he was in
Right.
Bethesda talking to people, and that's how he wrote Hunt for Red October, talking to people and doing research. And I was kind of in the same boat. I was talking to people. I would read a lot. Did my research on whether YouTube or nonfiction novels or whatever. But when Brad Taylor, for those of you who know Brad Taylor, he lives in Charleston. He writes the Pike Logan novels. When he wrote his query novel, and I think or query letter to literary agents, he started out. He says, "Due to my experiences on Delta Force or whatever it was, I think it was Delta. He was on Delta. That's something that can grab literary agents right away, because they can see that this guy has real life experiences. So I based on real life experiences, I really think veterans have the best chance to get published, as long as you're good at the craft and you can dedicate yourself to starting and finishing it, and have the discipline to rework and delete where necessary. I definitely think veterans can get into the business.
And I think one of the things, having written a book myself, I think one of the things that is important is having a little bit of thick skin when it comes to the editing process, and not not not
Yeah,
holding your baby so close that you feel
no,
like anyone poking at it is a personal insult to you or anything like that.
no, no. When I jumped from the first draft of Lions Den to the second, I think I cut out the first 30,000 words.
Wow.
And then there was a section about originally it was about three characters that go to Iran, and they were going inside the old U.S. embassy in Tehran. And I did a lot of research. What does it look like? What is this? What is that? And I mean, we're talking another 10, 15,000 words. I mean, so right there, I've cut my novel down into 100,000 words more or less, but it took away a lot of research, and it was you kind of take a deep breath, maybe take a shot of Jack Daniels and say, okay, that was fun. And you cut it, because in the end, I think the philosophy you have to have is, you do what you have to do to make your novel the best novel it can be. And it can't be that kind of stuff. Just the stuff that doesn't work can't be in there. It just can't.
Right. Yeah, and I kind of equate this to the teamwork and that you might have in, well, any team really. It could be a sports team, it could be the military, it could be anywhere.
Sure.
But you're going to take your strengths, you're going to take somebody else's strengths, and you're going to combine them, and you're going to come up with the best product that you can. Um,
Yeah, absolutely.
in this case, it's a book, and
Hmm.
you could be in business, you could be in manufacturing, or you could be in a service business or whatever. You're going to take the people with the best skill sets, and you're going to combine those people together, and you're going to come up with the best product, service, whatever it is,
Hmm.
just by utilizing those talents. And so when you have a
Absolutely.
good editor or a good people who are going through the book and reading over it and making sure that the storyline makes sense, and that it's entertaining, that it's doing what it's supposed to do,
Right.
yeah, you're going to want to listen to those people, because
Yeah.
otherwise you're just doing it on your own, and you're only going to be as good as you are. Maybe you're great at some things, but being great at everything is is kind of difficult. So
Yeah.
I
No,
definitely take that advice, right?
absolutely.
So overcoming self-doubt, I know, coming from a place where you've never written a book before, I
Mhm.
gotta imagine that there's some self-doubt in there, imposter syndrome and that type of thing. How did you navigate
Absolutely.
through that kind of uncertainty in your journey?
Well, let me start by just saying that self doubt is a burden to us all. It's just one of those things everyone is born with. So it's
Yeah.
anyone who feels that, you are not alone. You know, for me, I kind of went into this business. I was totally green. Didn't know anything about publishing. Didn't know anyone in publishing. I just knew that I had an idea that I thought would work, and I wanted to write about it. And I kind of you have to kind of just let the noise go and just kind of focus on, for me, it was focusing on my craft. And at the time, the job that I was working at the time I started Lions Den, I just was not happy in, I wasn't moving up. Wasn't happy with what I was doing. So for me, it was a little liberating because I was now doing something and writing where I didn't report to anyone but myself, and I was going to live or die by the pen or the sword or whatever you want to call it, and it was all up to me. Now, that's the kind of good pressure that you want. It's pressure, but it's good pressure.
Right.
So, you just kinda I think it's really all about, just, tuning out all the noise and the things that, "No, you can't do that." And eventually it's just like, "Why not?"
Right.
Why can't I? There's no reason why I can't. And, there are the voices say, "Well, you can do it and, nobody's gonna read it, you're not gonna be successful at it." And, maybe those things are true, but, you can't eh, I don't think you can go through life being in deathbed and regretting something. And I listened, before I started writing the novels, I was really big into hearing motivational speeches. And, you know, um, something, Tom Bayou said from Impact Theory. He said, he's heard it said that hell is to meet the person you could have been at death and realize you're not even a shadow of that person, and that heaven is to meet the person you could have been at death and see that person staring back at you. And I mean that really hit me hard. I mean that
Right.
was like whoa, I mean I just so at that point I just got to the point where I just said, I've got to do this. I have to do this. I mean, I'm not going anywhere in this corporate world. What did I have to lose? I mean, if nothing happens, I'm going to be the same exact same place I am. I mean, I'm not going to be living on the streets, knock wood or anything like that. So there was no reason not to try it. So self doubt, you can take back seat.
And I a couple of things there. I uh, had a guest on not too long ago, maybe a couple months ago, and I'm drawing a blank on what conversation it was that we had, but
Mm,
and what this was regarding. But um, they said, think of your day job as, even if you don't like the job, you don't see yourself going anywhere, or anything
mm,
like that. Think of it as the thing that funds your passion, or the thing that
right,
funds the hobby, or the thing that funds that side thing, because until that first check comes in for from writing a book, let's face it, it's up in the air, and you don't really know,
right.
what I mean. You could take that leap of faith, leave the job and
Hmm.
go write that novel, if that's if that's what you want
Hmm.
to do, assuming you have the financial resources and stability to be able to do that. But a lot of people
Right.
don't. So, just think of it that way. Think of it like, I'm doing this so that I can go do that other thing, so I can
Yeah.
go write that book.
Yeah.
Maybe you don't get to devote as much time as you'd like to it, but nights, weekends, lunch breaks, things like that. Like, you can
Yeah.
still devote some time to it, right? But
Absolutely, and all you have to tell yourself is, like Les Brown said, "It's possible." It doesn't mean
Yeah.
it's going to happen, but it's possible. And, one of the greatest things that ever happened to me during this process was, um, you know, discovering just how organic the process was for me and how good it felt being able to tap into the talent that I didn't even know that I had. I
Right.
decided that I was going to do it. I had an idea and I started putting it on a paper. And when things start to flow, that's where confidence comes in. A lot of people, get belief and confidence mixed up. Belief is knowing you can do something because you haven't done it. Confidence is knowing you can do something because you have done it.
Right.
And sometimes the results don't work out the way you want to either way, but a lot of times they do. So there's no reason not to. And for a while, when I was shelling out money for the editor and all these other things, it was tapping into that organic passion and that organic skill that was really kept me going because
Mhm.
it felt so natural.
Yeah. And I guess one way to guarantee that you're not gonna be successful, just going back to the self-doubt, talk and things like that, one way to guarantee that you won't be successful is you just never start. So,
Exactly.
you might as well give it a try. If that's something that you're
Yeah.
kinda feeling inside of you, there's that itch that, "I wanna do this." Um, but you're like, "Ah, gee, I don't know, I can't do it," or someone else tells you even worse, someone else tells you that you can't do it. Like, screw those people, like, who cares what
Yeah.
they have to say? If you
Yeah.
feel like you can do it, do it.
Yeah.
And just start
Yeah.
get
You
started,
you
I
miss.
guess, right?
Yeah, exactly. Get started and commit yourself to doing it. I mean, you're gonna miss 100% of the shot that you don't take.
Right,
And the shots that you do take, you can't just, if you're shooting a basketball or, lining up to hit a golf shot, you just can't, step up and say, okay, well, let's see how it goes. You're gonna miss if that happens. But if
right.
prepare yourself to take that shot and, you do your research, in whatever field it is. For me, it was, on writing, it was doing my research and, developing my characters beforehand. And I did an outline and, yeah, you just kind of go from there. I mean, the process has to take over, or naturally, but when you go to take the shot, make sure you're prepared and prepare yourself as much as you can. I mean, there's no such thing I think as being 100% prepared, but if you prepare yourself as much as you can, you're giving yourself the best odds to succeed.
And in that preparation, you gain that confidence too, right?
Right.
By
Absolutely.
knowing, "Hey, I did my research and I know this subject inside and out."
Yeah.
Yeah, sure, maybe there's one obscure fact that I don't know about, but okay, well, in the grand scheme of things, it maybe doesn't matter. But,
Right.
um, you know enough of it that you're like, "Okay, this is gonna be solid. I'm gonna get these
Yeah.
details right. I'm gonna get the flow of this right." And
Absolutely.
it's gonna be good because you've like you said, you've prepared yourself. Um,
Absolutely.
you mentioned earlier that at that book signing, David Baldacci, he kind of encouraged you to, uh, kind of take that leap and pursue
Yeah.
writing. Um,
Yeah.
how did that encounter influence your point of view on, age and success within the writing, industry?
Um, well, I really didn't like let age, come into play. For me, at that point in time, I mean, yeah, I was getting ready to be 40, but it was more about for me, can I do it? So I didn't let age slow me down, certainly.
Mhm.
I mean, I wanted to, yeah, commit myself to doing this. So um, I established a routine that would allow me to do it, but I wanted to make sure that I saw it through because, for
Yeah.
me, when I hit the end, that last keystroke on the first book, before it really goes to publication, um, minor adjustments aside, uh, you know, uh, there's a great deal of satisfaction knowing, I can look down at the corner of the computer and see, 103,000 words, and there's amount of success that goes with it. So, I was fortunate enough to meet Baldacci, and when I got to shake his hand, it was kind of like, feel like you just touched greatness, that kind of thing. He was here actually here in Charlotte this past Memorial Day, and I brought him the picture that we took that day, and I told him the story, and it was a really cool moment. And then I saw him again at San Diego for BoucherCon. So that was a really surreal moment. It felt like things kind of came full circle. I was fortunate enough to give him a copy of the book. I don't know if he's read it or not, but to me at that point, it really didn't matter because it felt like, things had come full circle. So it was,
Sure.
so with regards to age, I didn't let it factor in too much. I just wanted to make sure that, I set myself on the path and I saw it through.
Yeah. Yeah. And that sense of accomplishment or achievement, whatever you want to call it, after
Hmm.
that final keystroke, like you said, um,
Hmm.
y- thinking back to that original blank screen or blank page, whatever you started off with, right? That where
Hmm.
there's nothing on that page, and now looking down, there's 100+ thousand words
Yeah.
sitting there, and it's like, wow, I did that. Like that many words came
Yeah.
came out of me. Like
Ex
holy crap!
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a big sense of accomplishment. It really is, and, at that point, I didn't know whether I was gonna be self-published or traditionally published or hybrid published, and, I had no idea.
yeah,
But it reassured me that, at least I felt like, I had the skill set to do what needed to be done, and I one of the things that I do when I'm writing is I always reread the section that I wrote the day before, the chapter that I wrote before. It's a good way to warm up. But for me, it's also a way of, when you report to yourself, you have to be honest with yourself. You can't
yeah,
you can't write something and say, well, hopefully the readers are going to get it. No, that doesn't cut it. So, when I finished that last keystroke, I took an honest look at it, as honest as I could. I mean, because it's my baby, it's only, I guess, going to be so honest, but, you have to know that, what you just wrote wasn't crap. It wasn't something that's going to, get put in a leaflet or something like that. You have to have
right.
confidence in what you wrote. And I did. And that was a very, very good feeling.
Yeah, one of the things that I did with my book is I just gave it to people that I know, and like, even just family members, just read this.
Yep.
Does it make sense? Does it
Yeah.
flow right? Just and hit me with some honest feedback. And some of
Yeah.
it I
Absolutely.
took, some of it was, just, you know, opinion type thing. And
Sure.
I maybe I disagreed, maybe I didn't, but
Yeah.
sometimes that's a good way to do it, because I found, anyways, for me, when I've read the same thing over and over and over again, like, it just, like, yeah, I get it because it came out of my head. So sometimes you,
Yeah.
you might want to have that other, another set of eyes who gets to take a look at it too.
Yeah,
Um,
beta reading is important. Yeah,
yes.
I let my I let a handful of people read it. One of them was my uncle, and just I let him read it because he's just a, voracious reader. I mean, he can read a book in a sitting or 2 days at most. So I was like, well, this is a good way to get, quick feedback.
Hmm. Yeah, that's a great way to do it. And then you have even more confidence, I think, afterwards too,
Sure.
because it's not just you
Yeah.
who's like, yeah, this is the best I could do. And then there's somebody out there who's taken another look at it and was able to give you a little more feedback. Um,
Right. Right.
when things go sideways, will you be prepared? Some people are concerned they might have to go for a long time without electricity or even food. That's why I want to introduce you to 4patriots.com. Get preparedness products you can use now, and that could save your life later. My favorite is 4Patriots' new solar generator, the Patriot Power Generator 2000X. It uses the endless free power of the sun to power lights, your TV, medical equipment, even run your fridge. Plus, it's expandable and comes with a free solar panel. Or pick up one of 4Patriots' best-selling survival food kits. Delicious tasting and designed to last for 25 years. They even have kits with real meat, and if the power's out, no worries. Just boil water over a fire, simmer, and serve. You'll enjoy a hot meal and stay safe in a crisis. More smart people than ever are finding 4Patriots. Over 2 million customers trust them, and you might have even seen them on TV. I had the folks at 4Patriots set up a special page for you at 4patriots.com/drive on, so that listeners of this podcast can see this week's discounts and deals before they go away. Go to 4patriots.com/drive on, but hurry, these deals won't last long. Save more and get peace of mind now by going to 4patriots.com/drive drive on. So, any advice that you might have for folks who are, uh, thinking about getting started in writing in their writing career? Maybe never wrote anything before, um, you know, anything of any sort of significance, anyways. Um, what would you give them for advice to kind of help them get started?
Well, I think there's really two pieces of it. There's the writing craft itself, and then there's the publishing business. So the first thing I would want anyone to do is go on YouTube and read up on how to write a query letter. Know what the publishing process is. Before you decide you want to jump into it, because
Mhm.
there's a lot of steps along the way, and the best way to get discouraged after you've written a book is trying to navigate your way through the publishing process. So by doing that research, you at least have, a clear path. And, one of the things when I wrote Lions Den, and I started, with I don't know what you call it, but it was basically a journey wall, I guess. Um, you know, write the book, do edits, send it to a beta reader, re-edit, work on marketing, get, query letter, get published, all those things, you know, put them on a list. I mean, that way, it's what do they call it? A vision board. Sorry, vision
Mhm.
board. That way you can see, your path to get where you want to go. So, that's a way to get confidence. And in terms of the writing craft itself, um, the number one thing I would do is recommend is um, read. You have to be a good reader and involved in the type of novel, whether it be horror or thriller or whatever the case may be, because you know whatever style or whatever genre it is that you like, um, chances are that's where you're going to be doing the majority of your writing, just because you're going to write about what you know, and
Right.
it's the best way um, to get the audience to listen. And then, you start working on your characters. Always start with the characters. Make them, as complicated as possible and plan on throwing as many roadblocks in front of them as possible. And then, you start with your outline, and it can be as simple and easy or as thorough as you want. I think one of the craziest things I thought I heard was that Kyle Mills, the guy who used to write the Mitch Rapp novels, after Vince Flynn passed, the way he does it is he writes an outline, and the outline could be, I don't know, just call it a page or 3 or 4 paragraphs, something like that, and he basically outlines the whole book that way. And then when it comes time to actually write the chapters, he wakes up in the morning and says, "Oh, I think I'll write chapter 37 today."
Oh, wow.
I mean, that's crazy. That takes some skill. Dan Brown, he's very thorough in his outlines. Brad Thor, he says he writes by the seat of his pants, and that's what works for him. So do what works for you. I mean, for me personally, I kind of outlined it, chapter by chapter, and it would say something as simple as, Scott goes to the grocery store or something like that. And I knew where, the character was going to go, what was going to happen, but I didn't know how I was going to type it out. All I knew was direction, head north. And by the time I finished outlining, I had probably 2/3 of it outlined, and like, oh my God, how am I going to do this? I got another, third of the book that I got to write. But what always happens is as you start writing, other things come up, and you can add chapters, subtract chapters, take a character in a different direction that you've planned. Um, and then, before you know it, you have a book. But, dedicate yourself to the craft, establish a routine. Like I said, my routine is like I get up, I was working my 8 to 5 job. I would come downstairs, have lunch or dinner with my wife. She would go to sleep, fall asleep early. I come back upstairs, or reread the chapter I wrote before, and then I write the next chapter. And the chapter for me is usually anywhere between 1,000 and 1,500 words. That's usually my number. If it works for somebody else that's 500 words, then, it's 500 words. Just do what works for you. It is your process. There is no there are no limitations as to what you can do. So just establish what works for you, and just stick to it, and then just make sure you do it consistently.
Yeah, that great advice. I think especially the first thing that you were talking about as far as the knowing the process with what do you need to submit to an agent, publishers, all of
Hmm.
those types of things. Or do you want to be self-published? What do you need to do if you're going to be self-published? Because
Yeah.
pretty much like we were saying before, in a lot of cases you are working with a team of people who can help you with stuff. So if you have a
Right.
publisher, there might be some marketing involved that they can help with, and getting the books into stores and all that kind of stuff. If
Yep.
you're self-published, how are you doing all that stuff? Because there's nobody
Exactly.
else that's helping you, right? So have a plan
Exactly.
for that. Maybe it means you got to go find somebody who can help market the book, or who can help with other areas of writing the book, editing, and
Yeah.
the cover design, and all of these other things. Maybe getting it into stores. I don't know exactly what all is involved with that,
Right.
that you might need. Um, but you got to make a plan for all of that. You can't just uh, you know wing it once when the book's done and just be like, here it is, world, and hope that people
Yeah.
come. It's like the
No.
Field of Dreams. Just because you build it doesn't mean that they're gonna come, right?
Exactly. Yeah. There's more to it than just writing the book. It's a
Yeah.
complete process.
Yeah, it's in some ways, after writing the book is done, that's when the real, like, the hard work actually,
Yeah.
starts, right?
I think any independent writer like myself can attest to that. Yeah.
Yeah, and just
If you're
I mean,
fortunate, if
even
you're
just
fortunate enough to get to the big five, you have less of a problem. But if you're independently published, yeah, it's
yeah,
writing ends up being the easier part. Uh, marketing and rubbing elbows with people and getting the word out. That's tough, and that's where a lot of real creativity has to come in.
yeah, that's true, and if you have that passion or that spark in your background, and um, you got ways of rubbing elbows and meeting people, and uh,
Yeah.
getting your name out there and all that kind of stuff, hey, more power to you. But if you
Right.
don't, again, have a plan. So
Absolutely.
yeah, a lot of good advice there. A lot of stuff to think about, especially for aspiring new writers, um, who might feel like after that book is finished that they're just kind of being tossed into the deep end. Like, what do I do now? Like, that's a
Yeah.
lot of stuff to have
Yeah.
to worry about. So, um, like you said, have a plan. Make sure that um, what it is that you're going to need to do next and how to do it.
Yep.
Writing those things, unless you have somebody already who is committed that they're going to help you along the way. Um,
Hmm.
know how to write some of these letters, and uh,
Yeah.
you know that type of stuff. It's not like you're just gonna write uh, just like a letter home, the way you write a mail letter,
Right.
just "Hey, how's it going? This is what's going on." Although that's kind of a
Yeah.
lost art now too, but, you know, um,
Yeah.
eh, it's not like writing an email, let's put it that way.
No,
Um,
no, it's all business. Yeah, and you gotta know how to do it. So
yeah,
yeah, I think that's
eh,
and again, I think that's where I think where veterans um, can really excel, because any veteran is going to tell you that you have to have a plan of attack. So
yeah. Plan of attack, attention to detail, all that kind of stuff all goes into that, and I think that's,
yeah,
important stuff to take away from this.
yep,
So, um I know you mentioned a little bit about your books earlier.
mm,
For the listeners, again, could you tell us just kind of just real quick overview of the series again, just in case anyone missed it in the beginning, and where people can find your books?
sure. The Surviving the Lion's Den series all surrounds the threat of Iran to the west. The first novel, Surviving the Lion's Den, is really about a CIA agent that gets kidnapped and taken to Iran and tortured for coveted information, and the story is really about a escape. But the real, underlying story there is I wanted to explore Iran. So what you'll find in all three novels really is I'm taking people on a tour of Iran. Now, I one of the things that I had to do is I had to do a lot of research, and thankfully, with YouTube, these days everybody's got a camera or a dash cam, so it made it easy to do that with people because even if I wanted to go to Iran, which I don't, my wife's not going to pay the ransom. she,
Right.
I'm not coming back. So you'll see that in all three novels. You'll see a lot of or locations that are worth people knowing about, and you get an idea, a sense of the Iranian people who don't work for the Revolutionary Guard and what it's like for them to live under the fist of the Ayatollah. So that's some good feedback that I've gotten on the novels. The second novel, like I said, the Ayatollah dies. His successor comes in and he wants to rule the Middle East using a secret connection to the Nazis. That was my go for broke novel, really, because I had only intended to write, one, but when I got my publisher, he's like, well, I like it, but I don't want one, I want a series. So what are your other two ideas? So I had to come up with something really like that on the phone. And I said, well, let's take the two worst regimes in modern history, the Nazis and the Iranians. Let's put it together and let's see what kind of fun we can have. And it's a pretty action packed novel. Ben Thrasher, who is in Surviving the Lion's Den, but is not the protagonist. I kind of let him take over as the main protagonist just because I thought that my main protagonist from Surviving the Lion's Den, I can't give it away, but I just didn't feel like there was a whole lot more I could do with him. Thrasher to me had a very unique personality that I just really liked playing with. So he's my lead guy in books 2 and 3. And then the kidnapped CIA agent, Tom DeLange, he's in all three. So I couldn't leave it without him. Um, he's kind of like my Tom Selleck from Blue Bloods. The books can exist, but they're not really going very far without the Tom
Sure.
DeLange character. So,
Sure.
and then the third novel is about like I said, it comes on the heels of the second novel, and it is my creative take on regime change in Iran. And there is, I think it's chapter 37, I think, where the big surprise comes in. That shows something that people didn't really expect to happen, but um, it's far fetched, but I think it's somewhat believable. I think it is believable, and the feedback that I've gotten is that, oh, that makes so much sense. I can see that happening. So it's just kind of like, woo, okay. Because at that point, I was writing the third one. It's like, there's no reason for me not to try this. So,
Sure.
um, but I mean, all three books have, they have action, they have, some aspects of it that are definitely relatable to, everyday life. There's, touch of romance in it. I was once told that, book can't really have a book without romance. And I don't know if that's true or not, but I think when you sprinkle it in from time to time, especially on action novels, it certainly helps. And I've gotten some really good feedback from my female readers. So, it tells me that I'm doing something right. But
Sure.
yeah, it focuses on the Iranian threat. All three books focus on the Iranian threat to the West, but it's the underlying theme there is really exploring Iran, and let's see, it lets people know what's going to happen because the West is so shut off from Iran, especially the U.S.
Yeah.
Nobody knows what it looks like. Nobody knows what it's like to be there because everybody that was there before when the Shah was there, I mean, they're either really, they're up there in age right now. Nobody in their 20s, 30s, and 40s really, knows what it's like. So it was fun to revisit that.
Awesome. Well, and we'll have a link to the books in the show notes for the folks who are interested in taking a look at those books, who want to get a copy and read those books. So check out the show notes for that.
Yeah, you can.
Typically,
Sorry,
oh, go ahead.
yeah, you
Yeah,
can get them on Amazon. They're available on Amazon. That's my main link, in e-reader formats everywhere. And you can reach out to me on social media at Matt Scott Books if you would like a signed copy, and we can just work out something by way of Venmo or PayPal. And I go to the post office most Fridays to deliver books, so we can
perfect.
always work something out.
Sounds good. And again, links to those books will be in the show notes. I'll put your social media handles in there as well, so folks can reach out. Wherever uh, wherever they're uh, whatever social media platform of choice they are using.
Yeah.
Um, and grab a copy of the books. Great way to just kind of unwind at the end of the day, reading a book and kind of just getting lost in it. I think that's kind of
Absolutely.
a cool thing. So awesome. Typically, before we wrap up this episode, I like to end each episode with a little bit of humor, either a joke or watching a funny video or something, just to make people laugh. Usually, whenever I tell a joke, it's kind of corny, but this one I think is actually not too bad. So,
Okay.
so if you'll indulge me just for a second
Sure.
for this joke, it has to do with an author. So
Okay.
perhaps
Okay. All
this is
right.
something that might be of interest to you. So, um,
Okay.
so a writer receives a parrot for his birthday, and the bird's fully grown, but it has a bad attitude and it has an even worse vocabulary. Every other word out of the beak is a swear word, and the writer tries to change the parrot's behavior. He says polite words around the parrot. He plays soft music, anything he could think of to set a good example, but nothing works. So he yells at the bird. The bird yells back. He shakes the bird, but the bird just becomes even more angry and more rude towards the guy. And finally, in a moment of desperation, he takes the bird and he throws it in the freezer. And for a few minutes, he hears the bird squawk, swear, scream. There's all sorts of ruckus going on. And suddenly there's just deathly quiet. And the guy's frightened, thinking that he might have injured the bird or even killed
hmm
the bird. So he quickly
hmm
opens the freezer door, and the parrot calmly steps out into the writer's extended arm and says, "I believe I've offended you with my rude language and behavior. I will correct this problem at once. I am truly sorry and beg your forgiveness." And the writer is like astonished at the bird's change of attitude. Like all of a sudden, in just a few seconds, you just astonished at how quickly. But before he can say anything to the bird, the parrot continues, "Now, might I inquire as to what the chicken did?"
That's good. That's good. I like that. I like that.
Anyways, thank you again for taking the time to join us and sharing, your journey going from, your corporate job into the writing career. I feel like this is, just a good way for folks to kind of make that transition. Especially leaving the military, where a lot of times we're like, I don't know what I want to do when I grow up, that type of
Right,
thing.
right, right.
So
Yeah,
it was great that you were able to share this, and um, I guess the message is it's never really too late to get started. So thank you.
never too late. It's never too late, and it's always possible.
Excellent. Thanks for listening to the Drive On podcast. If you want to support the show, please check out Scott's book, Surviving Son, on Amazon. All of the sales from that book go directly back into this podcast and work to help veterans in need. You can also follow the Drive On podcast on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, and wherever you listen to podcasts.